Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have back on Luis Miranda Jr., 4 decades of experience as a leader in the public, private, and political advocacy sectors, founding president of the Hispanic Federation, and he was on last time talking about his book, Relentless, My Story of the Latino Spirit That is Transforming America. And relentless it must be because this is we're closing days of the campaign, and you are relentless. You are everywhere. So it's good to see you, my friend.
It was nice to be everywhere and nice to be back with you.
So let's talk about it. Before we talk about the hate rally, how are you feeling about the presidential race? We are less than 4 days for the end of voting. This is what we're in the closing days.
I feel good. Lin-Manuel, my son Lin-Manuel and I were actually in Philly
Ah,
campaigning in Puerto Rican communities, and then we went to Bethlehem, uh, and and we felt good. We like the enthusiasm. We enjoy the positive energy that people have. Absentee ballots and early voting off the chart throughout the country and certainly in Puerto Rican Latino communities. So we're we're feeling good. And
mhm.
last night it was fantastic to hear Jennifer Lopez in the rally in Las Vegas,
Mhm.
then introducing our next president, Kamala Harris.
And that's great. And I'm going to ask you about something she said in a second. We had Congressman Dan Goldman on a short time ago. He was just in Pennsylvania. He said the same thing. He said the energy there was off the charts. It excited him. And everyone's feeling cautiously optimistic because we don't know how to feel really. Because you could have a poll for anything. Anyone you want to support, you can find a poll in that state that says something. But you look more at the early voting data because we actually have data now, and that's different. The data is saying
Right.
something to us.
Right. And let me tell you, and we did a poll just on Latinos in swing states.
Hmm.
And we found that everyone who's saying different things about Latinos, it's right. Because what we found, it's that when you do the interview in English, support for Trump, it's 40 and 56 for
Hmm.
Kamala Harris. Those are our English speaking Latinos.
Right.
When you do it with bilingual Latinos, so that the interview is in both languages, his support drops to the 30s. And when you interview people in Spanish, only in Spanish, and those are around 28% of Latinos, his support drops to the 20s. So at the end, you'll end up, that's where the Latino community is, but language makes a big difference.
And why? Can you speak to that?
I think that for many Latinos who speak Spanish, two things happen. One, they are closer to the migratory or the immigration
Mm.
experience. And when you hear a guy saying that on day one, he is going to get rid of 15 million people who live in this country, that means something very personal to them. And then you have the contrast of Vice President Harris talking about moving forward with the bill that was a compromise bill between Democrats and Republicans that ex President Trump killed, but also a path to citizenship for the many people who have been here, including DACA recipients, young people who have never seen any other country but the US as their country.
That's interesting. And I really appreciate you breaking it down like that. And it makes sense to me. And you're right. The closer you are to the immigrant experience right now, the more likely you might have a mixed status family as well. You might have someone where Trump is going, if he had his way, his deportation militia, military forces come and rip your family member, your grandmother, a father, a mother away from you. And you have sympathy and compassion too, even if you don't have that, because it's so immediate. Like my dad was an immigrant. He had an Arabic accent. For me, the immigrant experience was growing up with that, a man whose first language was another language than ours. So it's a whole different scenario. I want to get your reaction to something you've been talking about all week on MSNBC and CNN, and that's what happened at Trump's hate rally at Madison Square Garden, which he calls a love fest, which
Love fest,
which is
love fest.
which of course the line he mocked the comedian and other speakers who were serious said horrible things about a lot of communities. Rudy Giuliani said about Palestinians and on Palestinian heritage that we're taught at 2 years old to kill Americans, which I guess my dad forgot to teach me that. But he said about Puerto Rico, it's a floating island of garbage. And Trump could have denounced that and it would have been a different scenario, but instead he did not. And when asked about it days later, he kept saying, I don't think it's a big deal. It was a love fest. I don't know who the comedian is, but never denounce it. So at some point he begins to embrace it. So what was your reaction when you heard a speaker at this huge rally saying
Listen,
this?
people ask me, on the one hand, there's no doubt that that insult injected energy in the Puerto Rican community to go and vote against Trump. We all remember his response to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Irma and Maria devastated the island, how he called us lazy, and worst, he withheld aid that Congress had approved for Puerto Rico. So we all had those wounds that were like, disappearing because
Right.
even a C-section disappears with time. My appendix incision has disappeared.
Right.
But when he said that, that's not the only thing we heard. We then heard when he called us lazy back in 2017, when he withheld aid in 17 and 18. So all of those old wounds got opened again. And at the end, in spite of the energy, the political energy, the anger, people to then go out and vote against him, the other side of that coin, Dean, it's that whenever our communities are insulted, many people believe it. So we work so hard to create a new image of who we are. Every day, most of us work hard, build businesses, build careers, try to be good people and good community members. And something like this reminds lots of people who are just a step away from racism and thinking that we're responsible that their kids cannot buy the house that they wanted. It is us who came here who somehow created a dislocated economy that it's creating the difficulties that many young people are facing now. So it sort of reminds people of the stereotype, and that's not good. And it then takes another year to try to get rid of those stereotypes again. So, in spite of the political impact it had, in the long run, it's never good for our community when it gets insulted. We then all remember, oh, yeah, when he ran in 2016, he came down his golden stair calling Mexicans rapists and criminals. So it is, and this is a campaign that has been worse than the 2016 campaign because immigrants are central to his discourse that this country is shit, according to him, because of us.
It's very well put. I'm sorry, Luis Miranda Jr. You make a great point to me about Trump did was remind the community. And I mentioned to you right before we went on air, I'm Muslim. In 2016, Donald Trump demonized our community so much, more than ever, Muslims got involved in politics. as a response, like we got to be at the table because we don't, the idea of
His
being
first action was a ban
right.
against
But
Muslims.
worse than that was his language, which incited hate crime, saying Islam hates us, accusing Muslims, I'm from Jersey, of cheering on 9/11, of knowing where the terrorists are, calling for a ban on Muslims. And we saw a spike in hate crimes that eclipsed after 9/11. Now, and he did some things as president too that they hate the travel ban, the Muslim ban. He retweeted anti-Muslim bigots, a lot of garbage. But now there are people in my community that have forgotten, and they're literally in Dearborn right now. I'm just watching before we started our interview him being cheered, not like thousands of people, but still being cheered by certain people there in my community who are Muslim. Like this guy made our lives hell. Mosques were defaced. Women with hijabs were punched in the face because of this monster. And you would cheer him. And I think maybe they need a reminder. We need him to say something horrible now, but he won't because he's transactional, even with his bigotry. He sees an upside in Michigan to getting my
Right.
community on.
And it's so transactional. Yesterday I was listening to him because he went to New Mexico,
Yep.
which has been blue for a couple of decades now. But he started his speech by saying, I'm here because I love my Latinos and they told me I needed to be here. So it was a reminder. Listen, I know that I ought not to be here, but my handlers are telling me that now I need to go and be with brown people who speak Spanish because in the rally, I insulted them all.
And at that rally in New Mexico, he said, yeah, I'm here for one reason. He goes, it's good for my credentials with the Hispanic or Latino community. Then he
Yes.
spent the time asking the crowd, do you like to be called Hispanic or Latino? Like this guy is new. You were president. Have you no one ever talked to you? Do you have any friends who are Latino or Hispanic that you can talk to about this kind of stuff? So he goes, who wants to be called Latino? Who wants to be called Hispanic? How about they just want to be called Americans, buddy? But in any event, he's got to do this. Everything is divided, even in Michigan right now. He's saying, I want to bring peace in Lebanon because he's trying to get Lebanese Americans and nothing about the Palestinians. He's literally trying to divide our community against each other. This is
It's
it.
it it's it is I remember when the vice president a couple of days ago talked about how his rhetoric is exhausting. And it is. After the comments on Puerto Rico and having to spend 2 days explaining how we're not garbage,
Yeah.
I was exhausted. It is really time. I don't want to sound like a Democrat, but it's really time to turn the page and get
It's
rid of this guy and this rhetoric and this exhaustion and this division.
and the line by Vice President Harris, the fact that it comes back in our minds and is sticky, shows how good it is and effective. Turn the page, and we're not going back. And it motivates so many of us. Now, you mentioned Jennifer Lopez. Last night, she was with Vice President Harris at a big rally, and she said about the line that Puerto Rico is a floating line of garbage, island of garbage. She said it wasn't just Puerto Ricans that were offended; it was every Latino in this country. It was humanity, anyone of decent character. And she's right. I'm not Latino, but as a person of decent character who loves Puerto Rico, I was there a few months ago. I've been there like 5 or 6 times. One of my favorite places to go to. It's a great island. People are warm. It's beautiful and all that kind of stuff. But putting away that kind of triteness, that superficiality, when you demonize any minority community or immigrant community, I feel it being the son of an immigrant. And is it true that others in the Latino community who are not of Puerto Rican heritage also found this offensive?
Oh my God. Yeah, we were in Philly a day after all of this happened, and half of Latino voters in Philly are Puerto Ricans, but the other half are everything
Mm-hmm.
Mexican, Venezuelans, Colombians. In the rallies that Lin-Manuel and I attended, there were all kinds of Latinos with Puerto Rican flags in
Wow.
solidarity with our community. I must have gotten dozens and dozens of texts and emails from non Latinos, sort of apologizing on his behalf. Like, no, we all know he's an asshole. You don't have to apologize for him. But I remember after Hurricane Maria, that a year later we took Hamilton to Puerto Rico, and Lin-Manuel jumped back as Hamilton, and he had not done it for a couple of years. Thousands of people from all over the country went to Puerto
Wow.
Rico. The hotels were full after the hurricane. The energy was great. And we introduced thousands of people to a place that struggles,
Hmm.
but to a place of decent people. And that's what Puerto Rico is. In the New York Times today, there's a column that Rita Moreno, Ricky Martin, and Lin-Manuel wrote
Ah.
about Puerto Rico, starting with the dude who has sold the most music, streamed the most music in modern time, Bad Bunny, from Vega Baja, Puerto Rico, to Fancy, where his song Despacito was first in the charts in 47 nations. So we have a rich culture and a rich country from where we come, and we're very proud of our achievements and how I think that what Jennifer Lopez reminded us yesterday, it's that these people are not only great for Puerto Ricans, they're great for the entire country, because little by little, we've become part of the larger culture. I don't like the concept of melting pot, because melting pot sounds to me like a block. I like the concept of a stew,
Hmm.
that this country is like a stew where the totality tastes fantastic, but you could also savor each of the parts of that stew. So I think that Jennifer Lopez reminded us yesterday that we're a minority here, but we are more and more part of this culture.
Certainly. And it's interesting when you say the melting pot, the idea of a stew. When I was in Canada for some events a few years ago, they call themselves a salad and they show a picture and like we're all in this together. So you can still remain who you are, but you're all collectively in the same bowl. And that's the idea. Because you're right. When you think through melting pot, on some level, it could be well intentioned, but it could mean that you just assimilate to the point where you have to give up everything and you're no longer holding on to your
And the
roots.
fact is that the new culture that evolves includes the elements of the new groups that are making the country better. I think all the time, and I talk all the time, it is the son of Puerto Rican migrant, Lin-Manuel Miranda, the one who writes a seminal Broadway piece about the beginning of our country for generations of kids, of all kinds of kids, to learn about the beginning of our country. That's what is great about this nation, that each new wave interjects, includes, adds more to the overall.
And what was so great about Lynn's play, to add one more accolade, he's got so many for it, but it was factually so correct. And it also made me go and read Ron Chernow's book, Hamilton, to learn even more because I was so intrigued by things I didn't know. And I'm like, well, I wonder how much is true. And it's like he took the book and brought it to life. Like you learn so much from it. And to me, that's the highest form of art is when you're enjoying it. It's entertaining because it should be it's entertainment, but you're also learning and being informed and educated. And so everybody know, like we'll talk about the battleground states. What other states are there a robust Puerto Rican, a population of Puerto Rican heritage that you expect to have an impact on this election?
The only reason why Trump has been visiting and taking pictures with brown people It's because the election, it's so close
Hmm.
that any pocket of voters, it's crucial. So in Pennsylvania, it's where Puerto Ricans are the largest group of
Okay.
all the Hispanics, and it's 4% of the vote of people registered to
All right.
vote. The last time President Biden got and won that state by 81,000 votes.
Hmm.
So 250,000 Puerto Rican voters can make a difference.
Win the election. Yeah.
But when you go to North Carolina, there are 100,000 Puerto Rican voters in North Carolina. When you go to Georgia, there are 70,000 Puerto Ricans registered to vote, but Latinos are 4% of the overall vote. Similarly, in Wisconsin,
Hmm.
Nevada, and Arizona, that's no, that
True.
in Arizona, we're over a third of the overall population. So we are an important component of anybody's electoral victory. And that's why he went to Arizona and then jumped to New Mexico, where he should not be winning. But he wanted to be with as many Latinos as possible to sort of show that he cares. But, if he was a new candidate, yeah, we give everyone the
Right.
benefit of the doubt. But for us in New York, Trump has been a racist his entire life, from making sure that African Americans didn't rent his apartments to asking for the death penalty for 5 kids who then were exonerated.
Hmm.
So this guy has bona fide racist credentials. The rest of the country just met him in 2015, but us in New York have known him for a very, very long time. But in spite of that, a third of Latinos vote Republican,
Right.
uh, and we expect that a chunk of them will continue to vote Republican. It's a vision that they have of life. I just hope that if they vote Republican, that they vote for the other Republican candidates and either vote for Harris, like many Republicans are
Hmm.
doing,
Right.
or skip the line and move on.
And the zero sum game that helps us. Well, it was great seeing you again. I so appreciate it, and especially breaking down where your community and the more broadly the Latino community is and where they're going to make a difference. And I look forward to chatting on the other side of this. And I'll say, inshallah, God willing, we're going to win this election, and we'll chat about policy under the Harris administration that you want to see for your community and for the country, even more broadly than that. So,
Absolutely. And one thing, Dean, that I think Democrats have, it's that we can be critical of our party,
right.
because that's the only way you get better.
Hmm.
You praise and you criticize, and then you get better.
I could not agree more. That is so fundamentally important. You're not a disloyal Democrat when you push the people you elect to be more in line with democratic values. That's what we do. All right,
Yeah.
Luis, great seeing you, my friend. I look forward to chat with you in the next round, next month or two.
Thank you. Bye
Take care.
bye.